you've just got to be people orientated. I just can't see any route to doing much success unless you're just a complete solopreneur and you just do everything basically, and that's going to be difficult. If you're going to start a small business, you can monetize what you're good at,
Yes.
or develop the business based on what you're good at, and instead of doing it for someone else, you're doing it for yourself. You could have someone that's, say, experienced in a role, but if their values don't align with yours and the business and the other people in the business, it's just not going to work, is it?
Well, a good performing person that doesn't have the right values. Hi everyone, just before we get going with today's podcast, just a quick announcement that our book is now live on Amazon. If you go and search for Financial Freedom at BDRR, you'll find a book that describes the mindset, strategies, systems that we've put together to deliver over 50 projects in 5 years. We launched it in 2025 and it went to #1 in 3 separate categories on the bestseller list. So hopefully you'll find some real good value out of it. And just one more time, Financial Freedom, BDRR on Amazon.
Yeah, the BDR evolution is changing the game.
Well, that's the full title. If you want to be picky, yeah, go and find it. Hi folks, and welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Before we start, if you haven't liked or subscribed and or turned your notifications on for whichever platform you are watching this or listening to this on, please do that now to stay up to date with our episodes. Today is one of our technical episodes, and it's actually the Financial Freedom Podcast Unscripted. This is where myself and Tim turn up and we ask each other sets of 3 questions, and we haven't pre-planned the answers. We don't know what those questions are going to be. So it could be good, could be bad, or it could be downright ugly, but we'll have a good go. And welcome, Tim. Hi, mate.
I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I'm not looking forward to it because this is uncensored, unscripted, unplanned, and under a wealth dynamic on a steel. So this is pretty much my worst nightmare. So hopefully, hopefully we can do it all right.
So out of both of us, technically, I'm a creator. So thinking on my feet is my skill.
Oh, so you're in the zone.
I'm in the zone,
and I don't want to be here.
And you basically don't want to be. But I think you've done well at this stuff over the last couple of years, mate. You know, in terms of one of the things. So I think with that in mind, to ease ourselves in, I think you should ask the first question.
Okay.
Yeah, to give you the opportunity to let's relax into it a little bit. Not saying you are a steel at the end.
Right, flip it back to me then.
Very steel.
Oh, good. Right. Yeah. So my first topic or first question is how I'm going to phrase it is, I've been in the UK for 11 years, right?
Yep.
And I think currently it feels like it's the most difficult political scene from a business and finance perspective. Because cost of living has gone up quite a lot the last few years, and it's now probably going up again because of certain circumstances around the world. And also from a business perspective, it seems more difficult than it's been in the 11 years I've been here. So what my question is to you is, Phil Bygrave, you've got the keys to number 10. You got the keys to number 10. What things would you look to implement from, let's just keep it on a finance business perspective. Mm-hmm. What's some key things you'd implement as Prime Minister from a finance business perspective to help turn the tide, I would say, is my topic or question for you.
Yeah. So, well, this is deep economic. What a question to lead off with. So just in recognition of what you mentioned there in terms of like every generation goes through cycles, right?
Yes.
So we're going through a cycle right now, which is tough. And I think every generation also goes through a cycle where social parties get brought in, right? And I think that really impacts the economy. So if you went back and had a look at the economic cycles, it's almost like the more conservative type parties, I'm not saying the conservative parties, but the conservative type policies, which are more to do with business and growth, when they've been in, after a period of time, the wealth gap starts to increase.
Yes.
And then people at the lower end of the economic cycle start to get a little upset with the fact that it seems that this wealth gap is accelerating, and then a social party gets brought in, which they feel would be then settle the economy and bring it back, within each other. And then what happens is almost counter to that is that growth gets really pulled back, stagnates, and therefore the economy worsens overall in terms of the job creation, the economy generally in terms of growth, in terms of availability of liquidity of finance. And because of that, things go up in terms of cost of living and so on and so forth, because it's harder to produce things, it's harder to create jobs and so on. I think right now, as of I think we're in April 2026, it's like 16% of under 24s are unemployed of working age right now. So, and that's the ones who aren't in full-time education. So that's a really challenging environment. But at the same time, what it does give, it gives the opportunity for the country to reset slightly and bring in some things which actually do benefit us in the long term. So there is a long-term benefit to having a social party, and in terms of minimum wage, national minimum wage, all of these things which do get forgotten, do get left behind when it's only a party that celebrates growth.
Yeah.
So I think it has to happen, but it's painful when it does. And then what will probably happen next is that we'll have to stimulate growth. What I would do is what was the question.
Yes.
So I've not even answered it. I've been talking for 2 minutes. This is the problem with asking me questions.
You introduced my question.
Yeah. I've just given it a bit of a base. I've given it a bit of a base, just for my brain to think about it a little bit more. So in terms of what I would do is I would do some really key things. So the first thing I would do is I would stimulate the property market. Now, obviously, we're in that space, but in terms of the top industries that generate jobs and growth in the UK, construction is one of the top 5.
It's a good point, isn't it? So it's not just the property, it's the construction and development space, and then the filtering effect, like you say.
Yeah.
So if you took like one tower block construction, and if you added up the amount of people involved in that generates jobs, business, and all those sort of things, it's in the thousands, isn't it? Roughly, it's like, so it is a big difference to the economy.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that I would look to do. I would look to incentivize those things through tax breaks, and as long as they're doing things like generating jobs within the boundary of the UK, because that's going to generate the immediate opportunity to do things. Tax breaks, grants, grants for stuff, so they're not having to rely on heavy costs of finance to do certain things. So as an example, Bionet gain as an example is a big one for big developments at the minute. They're having to spend way too much money on things that aren't making them money.
Yeah,
that's fine if you want to do that from an ecological point of view, but you need to help them with that. And things like the utility spends at the minute, not giving grants to utility companies to help them do their infrastructure projects, and therefore they're battering developers.
Yeah, they just pass on the cost.
They're passing the cost on. Yeah, exactly. So projects are going on hold because of utility costs, and that's like network infrastructure. It's not even utilities assigned to their project. So those things are things that I would look at in good detail to drive that economy. And then secondary to that is I would look to bring back a entrepreneurial relief, because the M&A market is stagnant in terms of the way to exit your business. So at the moment, the reason that most entrepreneurs generate jobs for people is because they create companies that in the future will attract either finance or exit or sale. There are companies that are lifestyle companies that will go on and on and on and on and on and just will retire. But most job creation, but they're like 1-man to 2-man bands normally. Like most job creation is done by somebody who starts something with an exit plan in mind. I would look to encourage that.
Yeah, and just on that point, that's a really good topic, because I think what's good to explain is why that's important for the economy. So if you think about it, people that start those businesses that have that relief, that may exit in the future, there's a lot of economic activity and growth that happens with the growth of that business.
Yes.
So there's new jobs, there's more tax, there's more opportunities, all those sort of things. So it does help the economy grow. And then when you exit it, it's not like that business just disappears, because it's getting bought by someone else that could either bring it forward to a larger scale or bring it into their existing business, and there's jobs that remain and things like that. So it's not like it just drops off. Whereas like you said, if you get rid of that relief, you've got lots of entrepreneurs that might, let's say they're getting older and retiring, they just sort of wind down the business, and then you lose that business activity. That doesn't help the economy and all those sort of things. But if they were to sell it because of the relief, that stays in the economy.
But, and the key thing is it sounds great on paper, or why don't they just sell it? But you actually have to prepare your business for sale, right? You have to do things, you have to invest in things. You have to make yourself almost obsolete in the business. So it's not an easy thing to do. So, and you have to do these things. It costs a lot of money to do that. So
and like you said, you got to plan for it maybe 2 or 3 years in advance. And things like that.
Exactly. And it might not benefit you if you then don't sell at a premium that after the relief is more than the value of what you have to spend in the first place. Right. And also it gives the opportunity to people who want to take the risks, because it's a bit like saying to somebody, oh, it's all right. I hear it. I'll say, oh, it's all right for them. They're selling their business. They're only getting 19% tax or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but they didn't earn anything for 2 years. They've actually put their own money into something that they've already paid their taxes on. They've then reinvested that into the economy, taken little to no salary for 2 years while they build that business. Ran it for 3 to 5 years, and now want to exit. that to me needs incentivizing, because why would you do it otherwise?
Yeah, agreed.
There's no point. There's little to no point, and that is a really critical thing. And the final one is just make finance cheaper.
So you're talking finance cheaper, so say interest rates.
And the availability of finance and liquidity is the thing that drives everything, because you've got two ways to grow, right? One of them is organic. Organic growth is hard because what that means is you make money to invest money to grow, right? Whereas finance is you borrow money, you invest that money, and you grow, and you pay back the finance. So if I'm doing it in an organic way, I've got to trade first and foremost, and that trade means that I have to earn money, pay my tax, and then after tax, I can then reinvest that money. Whereas finance, I can borrow money, I can pay that back. That is pre-tax, so I've not had to pay the tax to then spend that money, and then I've got it instantly, and I can invest it for growth. Okay. At the moment, that's too expensive because of the Bank of England base rates and so on and so forth, and there's no real incentive to do that. Because if you're having to borrow, for every 100, because at the moment, like you said, 9-10% almost for commercial lending. So if you're having to borrow £100,000 to pay 10 grand versus what it used to be, which was 5, it's going to be really expensive to do.
Double the cost than a few.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So when obviously the interest rates were at 0.5%, you could borrow commercial finance at 5%. You're incentivized to do that, to grow quickly, to create jobs, and then to benefit later and pay back the loan. So rather than having to do it the other way around, because doing it organically, I mean, you're looking at 5 years before investment, whereas doing it that way around, you're looking at investing now and paying it back over 5 years, and that's quicker from a growth perspective. So that's what I would do.
Yep, great.
There you go. Three things.
First one done.
Okay, so to you. You were in a reasonably good career for 18 years. Is that about right?
Probably. Yeah, from about 2005 through to say 2021 as a career, I'd say. So what's that, 16, 17 years?
17 years.
Yeah.
And since then you've been your own boss, if you like. What is the biggest learning that you've had between being an employee and being the guy in charge of everything? What's the biggest learning?
So I think the biggest learning and the biggest difference is it comes down probably to responsibility in a way. So when you're working a job for a company, you're doing that job to perform and do a good job, basically. Yeah, further your career, I suppose, and do a good job and things like that. But when you go home, if there's a big problem in that business, as an example, if it doesn't directly relate to you and what you're doing, you don't really have to worry about it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not your problem. It's not per se, is it?
It's not really a problem. So like, when I was working for a big property development company, if there was an issue with finance coming through to the business to fund that project or whatever, I'm just going to the people in that department saying, well, we need the money because we've got to pay the builders or whatever, like, go sort it out. And then I just go home. Whereas now, if we've got a project and the finance is a problem, we're responsible for it. So although we delegate it to others, say teams like brokers and people like that to get it dealt with, it's ultimately our responsibility. Yeah. And if it doesn't come through,
and you can't delegate and forget about it either, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
And we've got like the personal guarantees as an example. So ultimately it sits on our shoulders. So I don't know if it's a learning, but it's just the understanding that when you go from a job to a business owner, it's all your responsibility. I think you should always take responsibility for your life anyway. Yeah. But there is a different layer there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's a different weight of risk, isn't it? I think, so when you've got the job, the stress impacts the individuals, doesn't it? Right. So whatever is stressful happening, it's the stress that impacts you. That's the most important thing to you, right? There's probably bigger things in the world, like the current climate of economics is driven by a war. We're worried about finance, not about our house being bombed, right? Yeah. So it's a different toss, of course, but stress affects you. So when you're an employee, your stress is about your job, your risk of failure, your risk of redundancy, your risk of doing well versus not doing well, and then being taken maybe down a HR route or whatever. When you become a director, if you become a director of that company, your responsibilities grow because then it's all of those things plus those things for other people because you then have P&L responsibility. Yeah. But when you the owner, it's every little thing. Yeah. So it's not just the responsibility of the people, the jobs, and the so on and so forth. But it's the administration of the business as a whole, isn't it? And that
100%.
It's difficult, right?
It's hard. It's hard, But then to flip it, the positive aspect from it is because you're responsible for everything, you have more control on things. So
you feel more in control of it.
You feel more in control. Yeah. So like, you know, when you're working a job, like let's say I was managing projects, I got a salary, and then I might get a bonus. Yeah. That's it. Almost regard, like I could, you know, as long as I perform within a range, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, if I poorly perform, like you said, there's issues with redundancy or performance management, whatever. Or if the projects die up, you know, I've got a risk of redundancy.
Yeah.
So, which is hence why I wanted to be an investor and a business owner, because that's in my hands. Because I'd seen family members that got made redundant, you know, just because, you know, the circumstance of that business changed, as an example, and I didn't want that. So that's the big benefit from that. And also, if you're running a business, you know, it's not like the same salary every month. Like some months you're making really good money, other months not so good money, but ultimately it's in your hands to make a good profit and perform a really good service. Whereas, you know, when you're doing your job, it's just, you just do what you got to do, really, if that makes sense. So so that's a big distinction as well.
Yeah, I think in just your life commitment as well changes a little bit, because you can be more flexible, but you also have to be more committed, don't you? It's like if you need to do something at 7 p.m. on a Thursday as an owner, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, whereas at the same time, if you've got something that you can be at on a Tuesday at 3, you can also do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask.
Yeah, whereas working the job, generally you just like as an 8 till 5 or 6 or whatever, you're doing it. I know with when I was working the job, when the projects were getting towards completion, like I did a lot of student accommodation development. So like the couple of months leading up to that, it was super important that I was like pretty much working long hours to make sure it happened. But then other periods in the year is a bit quieter, but you just work in the day job.
Most good, well-paid senior jobs come with that, don't they? You know,
there'd be times that's a bit up and down, isn't it? But
yeah. Good answer. All right, good stuff.
Good question. Right, so next one. So I want you to, so we're in 2026 right now. I want you to go back in time.
All right, okay.
10 years.
10 years, right, okay. So 2016.
2016, say. Knowing what you know now and what you do now, I want to know the things that you may change, or like, I don't know if the regret's the right word, but things you do differently, say. And then I'd also want to know some of the things that in that last 10 years you've done well and you would never change for the world, type thing, if that makes sense. And they were really smart, because there's potentially a lot of listeners on this podcast that may be where you were, say, 10 years ago.
Got that, yeah.
And how could you benefit that person by the hindsight and the learnings and everything you've got in place?
Yeah, I mean, so 2016, I was 36 years old, and I was a director of a high growth, aggressive sales based business. You know, that was the position that I was in. My role was key sales, so it was like big ticket sales. So business development, commercial development, business development. So I've moved away from sort of like day to day, you know, banging on the door for singular sales to big ticket, you know, sales that you might have to bid for or tender for, or it might take you a year to win the job or whatever. And I manage teams of other business development people and bids and tenders teams and commercial teams like that.
Yeah.
As well as running a sales office, actually, at the time, I was also managing the sales office, who were the individual people. So it was an all-in job. You know, it was pretty intense.
Intense, busy job, basically.
Yeah.
And you were doing a bit of travel and stuff, weren't you?
Traveling around and all those kind of things. So in terms of, it was about, to be fair, it was about then when I started to think about, this is getting a bit much as well. So I'd started to look for a less intense job, because I moved from the global role to a more local role, you know, because I took up an opportunity to do an MBO of a business that was local to me, rather than continuing in the C-suite level role of a bigger business, if you like. It was a smaller business. So the difference being a 150 million turnover business to a 3 million, right? To buy that, grow that, and then that kind of thing. So and it was local to me, and there was no international work. And I think it was about that time when I was thinking to myself, the best case scenario for me is that this business sells at a premium of X at that time, because I was a C-suite, I was shareholder, but not major shareholder. I had some shares in the business. And the best case scenario, the timing for that is this. You know, so what I was starting to look at is I started to project, it was probably for the first time, why I was doing it, because I was good at it. You know, you don't get to that role without being good at something, right? I was good at it. So I started to project forwards. And then started to look at things like what ifs. So if this business doesn't sell for the next 5 years, or doesn't attract finance for the next 5 years, my shares aren't worth anything because they're not founding shares. They're shares based on an event.
Yeah.
That's normally what happens with senior managers, is you get shares based on something happening in the future.
Yeah.
Like an exit or a sale or
Mm-hmm.
or PE coming in or something like that. And then what would those shares value be at that point as well?
Yeah.
So, and then what would that be worth to me? So as an example, I think my share value at the time was about 70k, just as it stood, and then it would have been worth, had we hit our targets, somewhere in the region of £300,000 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't chump change, but it wasn't retire really type money. So I looked at it from a practical point of view. Said, right, so who's in charge of that as well? And it was that point when I was thinking,
who's in control of it?
Yeah, I don't control anything.
Yeah.
I could hit all these targets and then that might not happen.
Yeah.
So, and it was really, I was traveling around a lot. So my time commitment in practice was way too high.
Yeah.
For that benefit, if that makes sense. It was really where I started to value my time. And I think that's the thing that I would say is the number one thing that I do differently now, is value my time. Say no more. I was very much a yes man, then I'd say yes to traveling to Africa for 2 weeks to do a tender. I'd say yes to heading over to the USA to train a sales team. I'd say, because I was a corporate guy, I was paid handsomely and I did well. I enjoyed the celebrations, I enjoyed that part of it as well. But my time, I'd only started to really value my time. And, I just got married. My wife was struggling a little bit with a few health problems. And that's when I started to value my time really, because sometimes something has to happen as well.
Yeah.
Because the right things at the right time as well. So that was the thing that I would say is the number one thing that I changed, is to
always value time. Yeah.
To value my time above everything else. And the way that one of our mentors says it is, if you paid yourself £3,000 an hour, which is what your business could be worth in the future, if it was your company, would you go and do that task for someone else now? And the answer is no, isn't it? No, in normal circumstances.
Nice, yeah.
So I value my time and then take control. That's what I wanted to do at that point. Take control of my time, my outcomes, my responsibilities.
Yeah.
More so. That was the thing that really changed around that time in 10 years. And the second part of your question, what have we done well? I think it's the learning from what we did before. Because we were good, right? We were good at what we did. You were good at what you did. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been in your role.
You mean from our career, professional career? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. So I think what we've done really well is that we've aligned to things that we're really strong at. And that's come from that background, from that career background. Your process on, admin folder management is much stronger than mine. But we've done that really well. But it's about learning those things. And I think the other thing that I've done really well is personal development. I'm not the same guy as I was 4 years ago, never mind 10 years ago.
I mean, from my perspective, when I was younger, like personal development, it wasn't really a thing.
No.
Like, it's not like I wasn't at school or university or even early in my career and said, you've got to develop personally. No one says that to you. So you sort of have to seek it out yourself, or learn yourself. And it's got to be for a specific reason. But
I had zero empathy.
Yeah.
None at all. Because I was a hardworking guy.
Yeah.
So I had no empathy for anyone else. Not a good player. And I was really uber competitive. But that was because of the nature of the beast. The beast ran the show, basically. And it was lead from the front, charge of the light brigade type of a thing, right? So
if we just touch back onto your point before about learning or taking the learnings from your previous, say, career or professional, something like that. It's a really good point because if you're going to start a small business, you can monetize what you're good at or develop the business based on what you're good at. And instead of doing it for someone else, you're doing it for yourself. Even though, like we talked about before, you got more responsibility, but you're monetizing your skill set. And it's a good way to think about it, especially if you do enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people have careers and professions they really don't enjoy. So, you want to move away from that, do something different. That's a different circumstance. But if you actually relatively enjoy what you're doing, but you want to take it into your own hands, that's a good way to think about it, I think.
Yeah. And nearly once you've done something for a while, you have learned stuff. It's a bit like people that do a degree. I did a degree, you did a degree and used it. I did a degree and I used it a little bit, but I didn't really use it. But the skills you learn from that stay with you, So what have you been good at? It doesn't have to be, let's say I was a dentist. Don't know why I picked on that. And I was really good at, tooth extraction. Well, unless you're a dentist, it's pretty useless in day-to-day life.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But what you are good at is all the things that surrounded that position. You've got a patient. you've got patient care, you've got somebody who's going to be nervous about it, you've got other people like
keep to time schedules,
technician, you've got your timings, you've got your booking system, you've got your administration,
Yeah.
all of those things. So whatever those things are, you must be good at them if you're doing well.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just reflecting on the things that you are good at. And I think because when we did our wealth dynamics, the thing I was most surprised at was actually I'd been in sales for 20 years and I didn't come out any blaze at all. Whereas 20 years ago, I would have come out more blaze, I think. And that's because it was more about the creative solution provision that I'd done in the last 5 years and then keeping systems running and processes running.
Yeah.
So I was like it was like creative and tempo. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So but that wasn't my natural state.
Yeah.
My natural state was let's do 50 calls a day and then see if we can do some sales. That's blaze behavior. That's not creative behavior. So I think the learnings over time is the things to take away. Yeah. And then if it worked for your business before, if having a strict, rigid area of your business worked really, really well, you might have hated it. But if it worked really well, adopt it because it helps you, it backs you up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Good one. Right.
So I'm going to follow the theme. So you've had the biggest learning since it was going on. But what is and I'm going to go the 10-year thing here. So what is the key skill, the actual skill you need to make a success of a business? What is the number one skill that you think you can identify as the thing that's led to the success of this so far?
I think, I'm gonna do it to two things there.
Okay.
Obviously, wealth dynamics, I'm a bit of a steal. So, I'm thinking about the process of it, but ultimately a company is a group of people. So you need to understand that unless you're being a solopreneur, you're working with a team of people that needs to be a good team of people. So in our business, we've got the direct people that work within our team, and then we've got the wider team of people we need to work with. And all of the success of the business relies on all those teams and all those people, if that makes sense. So you've just got to be people orientated. I just can't see any route to doing much success otherwise, unless you're just a complete solopreneur and you just do everything basically, and that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, because there are a lot of one-man band companies, like consultants and things that operate on a limited company basis, but they just trade their time for money and that kind of stuff. And that's not really what we're talking about here, is it? It's a business without legs.
Yeah.
It has arms and legs. Then so the people skill is really key. But I think one of the things that you've done particularly well as well is recognize the different types of personality for different types of role. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I learned a bit about that from mentors, some that you've had as well, where you talk about, because we do talk about it a lot, wealth dynamic, but some people just are suited to certain roles and others just aren't because of their personality and skill set and things like that. So, and sometimes when you try, you might like the person, but their skill set or their profile doesn't match the job. Generally, it just doesn't work out, does it? For that reason. So the people are very, very important. But also in the current day and age, because of technology and everything available, you don't want to overdo it with people because it might not be that efficient. Also, if you want a lifestyle business, you might want 5 to 20 people in your business. You get higher than that, then it moves into a different scale as well. So the next thing I would say is systems and processes are very, very important. So you got the right people, but you need the systems and processes for those people to work within. So sometimes they can be software management systems, they can be automated systems, and then it can just generally just be the way you do things as a business. Contracts in place, key requirements you have to do for every sort of, in our business, sourcing agreement, projects, lettings. There's key systems that have to be followed by those people at all times. And a lot of the success relates back to that. And if you don't have them in a good place, it can really affect the performance of the business. Yeah. And they can always be improved as well.
100%, because the thing that you do today, you won't do tomorrow. So when we first, as an example, and you mentioned contracts as an example. So in our first 12 months, I did every single contract. I set every contract up. I put every contract in place. I checked and did all the I's and T's, both for projects, sourcing and lettings. Now I don't do any of that. So if we didn't have a system for that, it would go wrong.
Yeah. Now we've got a contract administrator as part of our team that can update that contract, send it out, get it signed and come back and all those sort of things.
Yeah. And a little bit like, and there's systems and things that you can put in place which then capture risk. Yeah. So as an example, our tenant profile, our tenanting part of it is obviously compliance. Yeah. So we do compliance audits, and the compliance audit is basically the checks that I would do every month just to make sure everything was in place.
Yeah.
But I no longer do it. But it's just process. It's just systemizing that process, right?
Yeah.
And then as long as somebody can follow it, it's checking in, making sure it's done. And then eventually you're not even the one checking it's done. And that's the way to think about it, really.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. But you're right. You can't grow without people. And people are at different stages of their own lives as well, right? I think sometimes people outgrow their role as well. We've certainly had that.
Absolutely. So, and the other thing, just to add to it, I'm thinking about it, values are a big thing, aren't they?
Huge.
So you could have someone that's, say, experienced in a role, but if their values don't align with, say, yours and the business and the other people in the business, it's just not going to work, is it?
A good performing person that doesn't have the right values is horrendous.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing because they might be bringing you money in as well, and you're thinking, how can I do without this money? But the rest of your business is struggling. It's the worst. It's the worst position to be in.
Yeah.
The best person is obviously the person who can perform well and has great values.
And then you really got to keep them and look after them because if they're an A-star performer and, like you said, the values match.
Yeah,
they're just going to make you loads and loads of money. You just want to keep them paying well, all those sort of things. Don't try and be stingy 100%. on the pay reviews and things like that if they're making you a lot of money. 100%. But it's also, maybe it is with those people, it's understanding. It's like, you do this. I know, like, I don't know, in our business, lettings might be an example of, the efficiency is very, very important.
I worked out our highest performer now is in 5 years is at 200% more salary than they were to start with us.
Right. Unbelievable, isn't it?
That is unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
200%. So it's gone up 100%. It's gone up 100% again.
It's amazing, isn't it? So that's an A-star performer and the big difference, isn't it? Yeah. Does that cover it?
No. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, good answer. Yeah, over to you. Last one.
Last one for you. Number 3 of the uncensored, unscripted.
Uncensored feels like I'm going to start swearing everything. Okay.
Unscripted, maybe.
Unscripted, yeah.
Right. So before we went back 10 years.
Yeah.
Now I want to go forward, say 5 or 10 years. So my question is, so obviously we run property portfolio building at the moment. We've got a lettings business as well as part of it. So my question is, we may sell the property portfolio, but let's say we decided in 5-10 years time, right, we've had enough of doing these projects. We've had enough of it. We'll stop doing that. What do you see yourself doing, or even regardless, where do you think you see yourself in 5 to 10 years time, say?
Do you know, I used to think about this a lot.
Yeah.
And now I don't, because I don't think you can be specific over a 10-year time frame.
Yeah.
Because if I look back 10 years and then 10 years before, all I do from 20 years ago is delete the texts on the Facebook profiles that I had at the time. I delete the stuff I used to message about.
Yeah.
So because it's a completely different person. Number one. What I would say is the things that I really love doing is adding value to the world. So whatever it is that I'm doing in 5 years or 10 years time, I'm hoping that I have a group of people that I can add significant value to.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So whether that is doing what we're doing now or whether that's doing something completely different, I don't know. I think we've been open in terms of some of the ambitions of the business, but in terms of over what time frame, I don't know what that looks like. And do you know why I've let it go a little bit? Is because it used to also stress me out because I'd overanalyze 5 years and 10 years.
Yeah.
And if I had a look back at the plans I'd done over 5 years and 10 years, none of them look the same, right? I think it's much more achievable in bite-sized chunks, but add the value to the world, and in 10 years time, I'll be 55 today. So I'm again not going to be the same person. So it'd have to be doing something different, but it would be still adding value in some way to the world. Because I don't think retirement is an option. I don't think in its truest context. So how I can continue to add value to the world, I don't know, but it might be a consultancy type position, or something that we run ourselves to help other people, which we've already talked about, maybe starting in the next 12 to 24 months, and just see where we go, really.
I think you raised some good points. So the 10 years, bit of a mistake to ask, I think, because it's like you said, it's too far ahead.
It's too far, yeah.
So even if you have something targeted for, say, 10 years, you're not really motivated to do it because it seems too far away. So even if it's a long-term goal, maybe 3 or 5 years is better anyway, because it's close enough that you got to do something about it.
Yeah.
So you've just critiqued my question, actually. So but it's fair. But yeah, I like it. Yeah, just adding value to the world some way. But yeah, the retirement's a key one as well, isn't it? Because obviously at that point, let's say the portfolio keeps growing the way it is at the moment, like you're going to be well in your right to retire and live off, property income and stuff like that.
Or interest on the interest.
Yeah.
That's where we're almost there now, right?
Yeah.
So,
but you're a bit like me. It's like, it really affects me to think that, like, you just retire and do nothing. You want to stay stimulated and have that purpose. But like you said, if you can just add value to the world in some way, even if it is different or similar or whatever, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going with the review again. So we've had the biggest learning since going along. We've had the key skills that you think. What is the biggest positive change? Not negative. We're not going to cover that. What's the most positive change to your life, not anyone else's, since going it alone in 2022?
Right. So the way I'll think about it is if I didn't make the change to, say, invest in property, build that income and also start businesses myself, and I just kept working the similar role I was doing before, maybe I'm in that role, maybe I'm a bit more senior or whatever, what would the differences be? The biggest difference would be is that I was not, like you talked about it before, about the control of time. So I didn't really have a choice. Unless I moved companies, I would be getting projects in different parts of the country, as an example.
Yep.
And that wasn't in my control because I wasn't sourcing the land in certain regions to say we're going to build this tower block in London or whatever. That was done by someone else. And it was just assigned to me to go, Tim, you're managing it. So I would have had to, if I didn't, I enjoyed the projects, but I didn't like traveling as much.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if I had young children, I wouldn't want to be away as much as I was.
Yeah.
So I would have had to just put up with it or move to another role. And if
It's
I moved...
interesting because my business has become more mobile as well.
Yeah, and I think even if I did the similar role for another business in my expertise, I would have had the same issue.
Yeah.
Because,
projects are where they are, right?
Projects are where they are for that business.
That was my problem.
Yeah. So there's only a limited amount that can be done in Manchester, for example, that's nearby. Once those sites are done, they're done.
Yeah. Otherwise, you become your own competition at that level.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
size,
and then you just take away stock from your buildings already. So ultimately, they would be working somewhere else. So wherever I did in that profession, I would have had to travel more in the UK, definitely. So my biggest thing is at the moment, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Our business is Greater Manchester based. Any of the travel I do is, by choice. It might be a bit of networking and stuff, which I enjoy to a certain extent. But, the biggest change in me is from that perspective, if I want to take my kids to nursery or school or go to an event or whatever, that's completely my choice. And obviously I'd tell you or something or tell the other team members, but that's about it.
Or not.
Or not.
Sometimes we forget, right? And like, I'm at this thing now.
Yeah, I suppose unless it's going to affect something or whatever, you do it. But, ultimately it's in our control, and those sort of things. So I think maybe it's time control.
Yeah.
Maybe it is more time control. And then even the things that we do that take up a lot of time, they're sort of our choice, especially like, we do like strategy every year. The things we put in that strategy is going to reflect how our time is going to be spent.
Yeah.
So we can choose or not to do things.
Yeah.
And like, as an example, this year we have chosen to do less of a type of project, more of a other type of project. And that affects time as well and those sort of things. So
and it's fair, isn't it? Because what we're saying is we're going to do more of a certain type of thing.
Yeah.
And, it does mean that you're going to everyone has to do things that they don't want to do. Like attend planning meetings at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night, right?
Yeah.
And it goes on for 3 hours. You don't want to have to do that.
Yeah.
But it's part of the thing. Right. So
yeah.
But in general, you are right. You are choosing the things that you do.
Yeah.
And when you do them, ultimately.
Yeah. And then like when you first asked that question, I was literally, and this sounds a bit self-centered or whatever, but I'm like, well, I'm just a lot more wealthier than I was back at that point. But then I like flipped it. I'm like, but what does it actually do? It means nothing, does it? But what it actually means is that you have more control of your time, and I've got more control of my time.
The difference is that you have to trade your time for money.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's what controls your time.
Yeah.
Versus now, the other way around, isn't it? You control your time, and that happens to make you money, which is a different way to do things.
Yeah.
But I'd agree with that. I'd agree that's the biggest positive change. For all of the challenges and all of the things that come along with being a business owner, all the administration burdens and the risks and the things like that, the biggest one is that you just get...
Yeah, you got control of your life.
Yeah.
And you don't have the risk of someone tapping on your shoulder and saying, come with me, we've got
Friday night chat.
There's a redundancy option coming here. And that was one of my anxieties, because growing up as a kid and redundancies happen, it's like that's you've got the security of, say, an investment portfolio. So even if our business outside of that has a problem. We've got security to a certain extent. So that's what property and investing can do to you. And B, if you take charge of your own life, that risk goes away, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's the same because I was a sales guy. So you're only as good as your last month. Every month starts with a zero. So
yeah.
You've got to step up.
Yeah, and I was very lucky in my career that I never had a redundancy because of projects.
Yeah.
But it was very, very close because I had, like the global financial crisis. When I was a project man, I had a big project that was literally about to launch in Adelaide, which got pulled literally overnight because of finance.
Yeah, that's rough.
And the only thing that saved it was, and I think it happened in the UK as well, but in Australia, there was a big government stimulus package for buildings in schools. So I was about to do a big,
we had schools for the future,
big apartment block in Adelaide that got pulled with a shopping centre, and then that was gone. I'm like, oh geez, that's it. I'm gonna lose my job.
Yeah.
And then like literally next week, the government's like, right, we're bringing in huge sums of money for schools.
Yeah.
And
was yours a school project?
No, but our business was primed to do those sort of buildings. Like it was like the niche size of what we do. So like
tenders overnight get signed off, and
literally the public sector was like, it was getting allocated to companies that met the criteria. We were like that exact criteria.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
So. And then I did like 5 or 10. Well, I probably did like 10 school projects over the next couple of years.
And that goes back to my first point in the very first question, isn't it? This is how you stimulate the economy. Things like that.
And that's why I agree with it so much, because I'm like, in that financial crisis in Australia and the UK, what they did is they stimulated property and construction.
Yeah.
And that basically saved the economy. So it's so weird that thought pattern's just gone away, is it?
Because the thing that people don't realize is that the headline is that they're making planning easier. And they're not really. It might do in the future, but they're making regulation harder. So planning easier costs more. So come on, you got to do something, right? Cool, right? That's it.
Excellent. Well, you're going to be Prime Minister, so that's all good.
Definitely not, mate. Too many skeletons. Right, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's good that. Right, so that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast Unscripted. Hopefully you've taken a lot from that in terms of the things that we've talked about today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and/or turn your notifications on the platform of choice. And hopefully we will see you on the next one. Bye for now.
The next one. Bye for now.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.